Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi, my student in primary 5. How are you today? I hope all of you are fine and healthy. Now we will learn subtracting mixed number.
This time, we'll be learning how to subtract them. So what are the steps involved in subtracting mixed numbers? Let's use this as our first example. Let's get the difference between 9 and 9/10 and 6 and 3/5. The first step is to take a look at the whole numbers, 9 and 6. Subtract them. This will give us 3. The second step is to take a look at the fractional parts, 9/10 and 3/5. If they are like fractions, you can proceed with subtracting them. However, our fractional parts are unlike fractions, meaning their denominators are different. So we have to rename them to make them like fractions. What is the common multiple of our denominators? 10 and 5 have a common multiple of 10. Now let's start renaming. 10 times something is equal to 10. So meaning we have to multiply this by 1. If we multiply the denominator by 1, we have to do the same thing for the numerator. So let's multiply this also by 1. So 9 times 1 is equal to 9. Now let's go to the second fraction. 5 times 2 will give you 10. So 3 times 2 is 6. Now that we have finished renaming the fractions as like fractions, we are now ready to subtract. We have a whole number 3 here. 9 minus 6 is equal to 3. Let's retain the denominator 10. So the final answer is 3 and 3/10. Let's try it one more time. Let's get the difference between 10 and 5/6 and 3 and 2/9. Do you remember the first step? First, let's subtract the whole numbers. 10 minus 3 is equal to 7. Second step, check the fractional parts. Since our fractional parts are unlike fractions, let's rewrite them as like fractions. What is the common multiple of the denominators 6 and 9? It's 18. So we'll use that as our common denominator. 6 times 3 will give us 18. So we have to do the same thing for the numerator. 5 times 3 is equal to 15. 9 times 2 is equal to 18. So 2 times 2 is equal to 4. What we have just done is that we actually turn them into equivalent fractions. So now we have like fractions already, and it's easier for us to subtract them. So we have a whole number here, 7. 15 minus 4 is 11 over 18. And this is the final answer. One last example. Let's get the difference between 12 and 3/4 and 8 and 4 over 7. First step, subtract the whole numbers. 12 minus 8 is equal to 4. Second step, check the fractional parts. Since they are unlike fractions, let's rewrite the fractional parts as like fractions. 4 and 7 have a common multiple of 28. So let's use that as our common denominator. Now let's start renaming. 4 times 7 will give us 28. So 3 times 7 is equal to 21. Next fraction. 7 times 4 is 28. So 4 times 4 is 16. Now that they are already like fractions, let's subtract them. So we have a whole number here. 21 minus 16 is equal to 5. Let's retain the denominator of 28. So the final answer is 4 and 5 over 28. Sometimes, when we subtract mixed numbers, there's another useful skill that we have to learn. It's how to rename whole numbers. So let's do that later on. So if we are going to subtract 8 and 1/3 minus 2 and 5/6, let's use the same strategy. First, let's subtract the whole numbers. 8 minus 2 is equal to 6. Second step, let's rewrite the fractional parts as like fractions. 3 and 6 have a common multiple of 6. So 3 times 2 is equal to 6. 1 times 2 is 2. Let's go to the second fraction. 6 times 1 is 6. So 5 times 1 is 5. This is the part wherein you have to learn how to rename fractions or mixed numbers. Because you see, 5/6 is bigger than 2/6. We cannot subtract this from this number. But wait, this fraction 2 over 6 is actually part of 6 and 2/6. This is taken as a mixed number. And definitely this mixed number is bigger than 5/6. So it's still possible for us to subtract 5/6 from the first mixed number. So let's do that. How are we going to subtract 5/6 from 6 and 2/6? Let's rename the whole number. 6 can be renamed as 5 and 6 over 6. Because 6 over 6 is equivalent to 1. And 1 plus 5 is 6. So their values didn't change at all. Now why did I choose 6 over 6? It is simply because I need to think of a fraction which will make it easier for me to work with the second fraction 5/6. Looking at the denominator of the second fraction, it is easier for me if I match it with the same denominator. That's why I chose 6 out of 6. Now to continue. We are not yet done renaming 6 and 2/6. We have just renamed the whole number 6. So let's add the 2/6 here. So 5, 6 plus 2 is equal to 8 over 6. So meaning 5 and 8 over 6 is actually the same as 6 and 2/6. We have just renamed this mixed number. Now we are ready to subtract 5/6 from it. 5, 8 minus 5 is 3 and will retain the denominator of 6. Take note that when we express our final answer, we have to see to it that it is expressed in simplest form. And as we know that 3 over 6 is not yet in its simplest form, so we'll divide them by their common factor, which is 3. So the final answer would be 5. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. The final answer is 5 and 1/2. Let's do one more example to make sure that we know how to do this. So let's subtract 6 and 1/9 and 4 and 1/6. First step, let's subtract the whole numbers. 6 minus 4 is equal to 2. Now let's take a look at the fractional parts. Since they are unlike fraction, let's rename them as like fractions. So what's the common multiple of the denominators 9 and 6? It's 18. So let's use that number. 9 times 2 is equal to 18. So 1 times 2 is 2. Let's go to the second one. 6 times 3 is 18. So 1 times 3 is 18. 1 times 3 is 3. Again, we cannot subtract 3 over 18 from 2 over 18. But we can subtract it from 2 and 2 over 18. So let us rename the whole number first. So 2 is actually the same as 1 and 18 over 18. Remember, I have to match it with the second fraction here so that it's easier for us to subtract this fraction from our mixed number. We have just renamed 2, so let's add the remaining fraction here, 2 over 18. So let's add it here. So we have 1. 18 plus 2 is 20 over 18. Now that we have finished renaming our fraction here, 2 and 2 over 18 is the same as 1 and 20 over 18, we are ready to subtract. So 1 here, 20 minus 3 is 17 over 18. So the final answer is 1 and 7, 17 over 18. This time, let us learn how to subtract a whole number by a mixed number. Find the difference between 4 and 1 and 2/5. To do this, we have to learn how to rename our whole numbers. So let's use these steps. Step 1. Subtract the whole numbers. 4 minus 1 is equal to 3. Second step. Rename the whole number. So I'll copy first 2/5 here. So let's rename 3. How do we rename 3? We can rename it as 2 and 5 over 5. 5 over 5 is equal to 1. 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. So they have the same value. Why did I choose 5 over 5? We need to match it with the second fraction here. So now it's easier for us to subtract 2/5 from our whole number or our mixed number. So we have a whole number here. 5 minus 2 is equal to 3/5. So the difference between 4 and 1 and 2/5 is equal to 2 and 3/5. One more time. This is our final example. Let's subtract 8 by 4 and 5/8. Let's do the steps. Step 1, subtract the whole numbers. So 8 minus 4 is 4. So I'll just copy 5/8. Next, rename the whole number. Our whole number is 4, so let's rename it as 3 and 8 over 8. 3 and 8 over 8 has the same value as 4. I chose 8 over 8 Because I got the clue from the denominator of our second fraction. Now it's easier for me to subtract it from our newly renamed whole number. So we have 3 here. 8 minus 5 is equal to 3/8. This is the final answer.